Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at Pam Bondi,
Oh, yeah.
President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General.
Big role.
Big role. So we've got her Wikipedia page, some recent news articles, even got into some Reddit threads.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, got to see what the internet thinks.
For sure.
So buckle up, because we are going deep into her career, the controversies, and what her nomination could mean, for the country.
It's really interesting to look back at her career as a prosecutor in Florida and think about how that might have, shaped how she thinks about the law.
Yeah.
She spent 18 years handling cases from domestic violence all the way to murder.
That's almost 2 decades, in the trenches.
Yeah.
Her bio even mentions that she, supervised that case of Dwight Gooden.
Oh, yeah.
The former Mets pitcher who, kind of had a rough patch, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder if that dealing with high-profile individuals like that and the media scrutiny and everything, if that kind of prepared her for, the pressure cooker of a political position.
Right.
Especially one as, visible as Attorney General.
For sure. Speaking of high profile, Bondi made history in 2010 when she became Florida's first female Attorney General. That's got to be a landmark moment, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Although her primary win was really close.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she just eked it out with just under 38% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
And even the general election wasn't like a landslide. She beat Dana Gelber, who was a state senator at the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a huge victory or anything.
But she came back swinging in 2014, winning re-election with a pretty solid 55% of the vote.
Yeah, so it seemed like she really kind of found her footing during that first term.
Interesting.
Incumbents often have an edge, but yeah, she really solidified her position.
Okay, so now let's jump ahead to 2019. Bondi stepped onto the national stage as one of Trump's defense attorneys during his first impeachment trial. Pretty intense moment in American politics.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to remember that Trump was facing those abuse of power charges related to his, dealings with Ukraine, allegations of withholding aid for his own personal political gain.
And Bondi was right there in the thick of it, defending Trump, along with, some other pretty heavy-hitting lawyers. Do you think that experience, kind of trial by fire, prepared her for the political chess game that, she might face as AG?
It's certainly possible. I mean, it exposed her to high-stakes legal strategy and put her, right in the spotlight on the national stage.
Right.
But whether that translates to, effectiveness in the AG role remains to be seen.
Of course, of course. Well, we can't talk about Bondi without addressing some of the, controversies that have followed her.
Sure. There are a few key incidents that have really kind of sparked a lot of debate. And raised questions about, her judgment and things.
Like the $25,000 donation that Trump made to Bondi's PAC right before her office decided to not investigate Trump University for fraud.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Big one.
The timing of that donation definitely, fueled accusations of a quid pro quo, which puts a spotlight on how politics and legal decisions sometimes intersect,
Right.
in a kind of murky way.
Well, Bondi has said that she wasn't aware of the complaints against Trump University at the time and denied any wrongdoing, but it definitely, left a lot of people wondering.
Yeah, and it's tricky because proving intent in these types of cases could be really difficult. We have to consider, all the different perspectives, and, there's rarely a simple answer.
Yeah.
In these, complex political scenarios.
For sure. And then you've got the whole hurricane dog incident.
Oh, right.
Which some might see as a quirky footnote, but I kind of think it might reveal something about Bondi's tenacity.
It's possible.
Or her judgment. So after Hurricane Katrina, Bondi adopted this St. Bernard puppy.
Right.
But then the original owners tracked the dog down and wanted it back.
Oh, wow.
And it turned into this very public, legal battle that lasted 16 months, with Bondi refusing to return the dog. So while it seems trivial, compared to accusations of political favors and stuff, it definitely got a lot of media attention, and I think probably shaped some public perception of her character.
It makes sense. Perception matters so much in politics.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to things that might seem small or insignificant,
Right.
on the surface.
Right.
And this case definitely showed that.
So after all of that, Bondi went back to private practice. And she focused on things like corporate regulatory compliance, fighting human trafficking, and the opioid crisis.
Interesting.
Seems like a very disparate experience, but maybe that could inform how she approaches this role as AG.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it might show that she has a real interest in tackling those kinds of social issues, and that's definitely relevant to the work of the Justice Department.
And then, bam, Trump is back as president-elect, and he nominates Bondi for attorney general.
It's a huge development.
What are the ramifications of this, especially given, what we just talked about, all this stuff in her past?
Well, I mean, this is the top spot at the Department of Justice. Right. She'd be responsible for enforcing federal law, like across the board.
Right.
This is a position with a ton of power.
Right.
A lot of responsibility. And yeah, her appointment's definitely generated a lot of buzz, for sure.
And we've been keeping an eye on those Reddit threads, and let's just say opinions are all over the place.
Oh, yeah, they have.
Some people are excited, some are skeptical, and there's a lot of debate about whether she'll be able to separate her personal relationship with Trump from, her duties as AG.
Right.
That word loyalist keeps popping up, which I think really gets at the heart of it. People are worried about her independence and whether she's going to prioritize Trump's interests over upholding the law.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. Bondi's history with Trump, especially her role in his impeachment defense.
Right.
That's definitely going to be a focal point as her nomination moves forward.
Welcome back to our deep dive on Pam Bondi, from prosecutor all the way to President-elect Trump's nominee for Attorney General. So we were just talking about, those Reddit threads.
Yeah.
And the term loyalist, which I think is a really good way to describe it.
Right.
But to understand the impact of this nomination,
Yeah.
we need to, look at what the Attorney General actually does.
Right.
What does the job actually entail beyond just being, the top lawyer?
Yeah, it goes way beyond just prosecuting criminals.
Okay.
I mean, the AG oversees the whole Department of Justice.
Right.
Which is responsible for enforcing federal law, across so many different areas.
So we're talking criminal prosecution, civil litigation, representing the U.S. government in, all sorts of legal matters.
Exactly.
Basically shaping legal strategy for the whole country.
Yeah, and it's not just reacting to events. The AG also helps shape policy.
Okay.
By advising the president on legal matters, which can really influence the administration's stance on big issues.
Like what kind of issues are we talking about?
I mean, everything. Immigration, environmental protection, criminal justice reform, all of that.
So it's not just about being a legal expert. They have to be a strategist, advisor, leader.
Totally.
Given Bondi's background and her alignment with Trump.
Yeah.
What do you think her priorities would be?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
It's natural to wonder if her past, inner relationships are going to influence how she approaches this job.
Well, we know that Trump has made immigration a central part of his platform.
Yeah.
How might Bondi's appointment, impact that?
It's an area where we could see big changes.
Like what?
The AG is key in implementing immigration policy, so Bondi would be front and center in efforts to tighten border security, change asylum procedures, even potentially bring back those family separation practices.
Which would be hugely controversial.
Oh, absolutely. There would be a lot of pushback and legal challenges for sure.
And AG represents the government in court.
Right. Exactly. So Bondi would be the one defending any new policies from legal challenges.
Which are bound to happen.
Yeah, especially with how heated the immigration debate is right now.
What about criminal justice reform? That's been a big topic in recent years.
For sure.
We're talking mass incarceration, racial disparities, all that stuff. Bondi's background is as a prosecutor, and she's known for being pretty tough on crime.
Right.
How do you think she'd approach this issue?
I think her record suggests a more traditional law and order perspective.
Yeah.
But the AG also has to see the bigger picture,
Right.
the complexities of the justice system, the need for policies that address systemic issues.
So it's a balancing act, her background as a prosecutor versus this movement for reform.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see where she lands on that.
Yeah, it'll impact a lot of people.
And then there's the elephant in the room, those ongoing investigations into Trump.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about those.
And his businesses.
Right. Those aren't going away. And it raises a lot of questions about, conflicts of interest.
Right, because as AG, she'd have oversight over those investigations.
Exactly.
Which puts her in a tricky spot.
A real powder keg situation. Can she navigate that without blowing everything up?
Especially with those concerns about her being, so loyal to Trump.
Yeah, good question.
leads me to another part of this we haven't talked about, the confirmation process itself.
Right.
It's not just Trump saying, hey, you're AG, right?
Yeah, it's not that simple.
So she has to go through this whole process.
Yeah, any nomination for Attorney General needs approval from the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
It's called advice and consent.
So we're talking hearings, background checks,
All of that.
a vote by the full Senate, kind of like a job interview, but, way higher stakes.
Exactly.
And the whole country is watching.
Yeah, given the political climate, it's going to be intense.
So what kind of scrutiny can we expect her to face?
First up is the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
They're going to grill her on everything.
Yeah.
Qualifications, experience, her views on legal issues. And yeah, they'll bring up those controversies we talked about.
Right, the Trump University donation.
Yeah.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog too.
Anything to question her judgment.
Right. See if there are any red flags.
Republicans control both houses of Congress.
Yeah.
So is it a done deal?
Not necessarily. Even with a Republican majority, she's going to face tough questions, especially from Democrats.
Yeah.
They're already worried about her independence.
Right.
If she'll stand up to Trump.
So let's say she gets through all that and gets confirmed.
Okay.
What happens next?
Well, then she's got a lot on her plate.
Right, like what?
It's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but based on everything we know, there are a few areas she might focus on.
Like what? What do you think will be her big thing?
Well, she was a prosecutor,
Right.
and she's aligned with Trump's tough on crime stance.
Yeah.
So criminal justice reform is something to watch.
Okay.
Will she push for harsher punishments or embrace the reform movement?
And immigration.
Right. Huge issue.
Trump wants to crack down on illegal immigration. So it seems like Bondi would be a big part of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she handles those concerns about family separations, too.
And of course, the Trump investigations.
Can't forget those.
How do you see those playing out?
That's a big wild card. Will she recuse herself to avoid any bias? Or will she get involved and potentially influence them?
Right. A lot of scrutiny there.
Yeah, it could impact public trust in the whole justice system.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah.
From her start as a prosecutor
Yeah.
all the way to her controversial appointment as Attorney General.
It's been a wild ride.
Triumphs, setbacks.
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Now we're going to look into what the public thinks.
Right.
Those Reddit threads give us a really interesting look into the hopes and fears about this appointment.
We've been talking about Bondi's nomination and, her history with Trump.
Yeah.
Her past controversies. It's created a lot of buzz online.
It's interesting to see how people are reacting.
Yeah.
Those online discussions really show what people are thinking.
One thing I keep seeing is that some people are worried about her lack of experience at the federal level. They're like, is being Florida's Attorney General enough for this?
It's a fair question.
It is. It is.
The Department of Justice is huge.
Right.
And really complicated.
It's a big jump from state to federal.
It's a whole other ballgame.
I've seen comments like, she might be a good lawyer, but can she manage something this big?
Yeah, and
Is she even up to date on everything going on?
The Attorney General isn't just a lawyer. They have to be a leader, too.
Right.
They need to inspire people, make tough decisions.
So how does Bondi measure up? We've talked about all her experience. Does any of that show if she can handle this?
Her supporters talk about her achievements as Attorney General, prosecuting criminals, defending state laws, tackling things like the opioid crisis.
But her critics say that's not the same as the federal level.
Right? They worry she might not be ready for this.
Especially with all the pressure and scrutiny.
And of course, there's her relationship with Trump.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Can she be impartial in investigations that involve him?
That's a question that's going to follow her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she handles that.
If she seems too eager to defend him, she looks like a puppet.
Right, and people will lose trust in the Justice Department.
But if she's too aggressive, she risks alienating Trump's base.
Exactly. It's a tough situation.
A real tightrope walk.
She's going to have to be really careful.
We've covered a lot about Bondi.
Yeah, from the very beginning to now.
All her ups and downs.
And a lot of unanswered questions.
So the biggest question is, can she be a true champion of justice?
Can she put the American people first?
Or will she put Trump and her party above the law?
That's what we have to wait and see.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it all play out.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Pam Bondi's career.
And all the controversies surrounding her nomination for Attorney General.